This morning's guest is a columnist for the Myrtle Beach Herald. He writes from his head, but television is in his heart. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at East of Chicago Pizza, where pizza's done right. The 2007 Kids Restaurant of the Year, 3901 North Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on TV talk, and we're visiting with Myrtle Beach Herald columnist Pete Sieler. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in early this morning. Of course, the Florence sales manager for WFXB Fox TV, this TV station.
Right.
And if you remember a year ago and 1 month, we were here in another one of the rooms here at East of Chicago with Claudia McCullough from Coastal Carolina University and Robinson Everett.
That's correct.
Your former boss and my father.
Right.
And your current partner in crime there with Pacific Media Corporation.
Right.
We were here and had a great time last summer. Great to get you back in. That was right. That was literally right as you were kicking off your column.
That was correct. That was the first week in July last year.
That's amazing. How have the last 14 months been with the column?
It's been exciting, fun. It brings back lots of fond memories. It's it's like walking down memory lane, reminiscing, and it really does trigger more exciting things because as you evolve with finding out what happened 50 years ago, you all of a sudden said, hey, I've got to get a copy of that show. Then you start looking on eBay and you try to buy a program that it still exists someplace in somebody's collector so you can sit back and enjoy the show again.
eBay must be a wonderful place for that.
It's a fabulous place. I'm probably their biggest customer.
Listen up, really? Wow. You and Pierre Omidyar, I believe, is the founder there of eBay. I bet a lot of folks, do you know a lot of people like yourself who really use eBay a lot?
There's a lot of people. There is surprisingly a tremendous amount of people in the United States who actually collect old television shows.
Is that right?
And you will also find so many cases that you can buy them either that they've been dubbed over to VHS,
right,
or some companies have taken them and done them to DVD. And you can even buy them still on their original 16mm format, original old kinescopes from back in the 50s.
Is that right?
And it's fabulous.
You know something about the 16mm format.
I cleaned many a film with them.
Wow. I remember, of course, when your first column came out on July 5th, and you highlighted at age 15 your first job at a TV station there in Montana.
Right.
Cleaning those 16mm kinescopes.
You take a look at 2,000-foot reel for a 60-minute program.
Wow.
And you had, if you broadcast 8 hours a day, you had 8 of those programs. So you had to clean before you put them in the Bell and Howell projector.
Wow.
And if you were lucky, you got them clear. If there's somebody had treated them rough, you could all of a sudden, maybe if you've ever seen where you see a piece of a hair going across the screen, that's means somebody didn't clean the film.
Is that right? That's fascinating. We have seen that or seen examples of that in the past.
Right, and so that's what happens that nobody had cleaned the film. So you know they left their tracks behind.
That is amazing, Pete, to think about 50-plus years in the industry and the excitement of the changes associated with broadcasting, which really sets the stage for you to be a par excellence columnist.
Well,
for not only the Myrtle Beach Herald, but another 80-some Heralds around the country, the Detroit Herald, the Orlando Herald, Kansas City Herald, that's right, the Palm Springs Herald. And I understand El Centro Herald and Yuma Herald are about to launch.
That's right.
As well as, I think, maybe some of the ones in Montana. We've got quite a few more Heralds. I think another 210 Heralds are about to launch. So there'll be more than 300 Heralds that are...
I was really so tickled when I'm reading one of my hometown web pages and somebody said they read about our column in the Kansas City Herald in Miles City.
That's right.
Wow.
At milescity.com. And that's the great thing. If folks go to milescity.com, and I can't remember the forum, but if they searched your name, it will find that forum where they had a piece about, what was it about again?
Gene Autry came to Miles City. They had a event every year. It was called the Range Riders Roundup.
Right.
And it was a rodeo 4-day event. It was always held at that time at the last part of July, the last weekend.
Right.
And during that late 40s and early 50s, they brought in Western TV stars and movie stars at that time.
Right.
Gene Autry came in 51 and 53. The Sons of the Pioneers showed up in 52, and Rex Ellen was one of the last ones. He was there in 1954.
Wow.
And, you know, the little town just grew for the parade. They rode in the parade. They did a show during the rodeo, and it was fantastic. I mean, every kid that saw these movie stars, whether it would have been on TV in a bigger city or
Right.
the Saturday movie matinees that you paid 12 cents a ticket to.
12 cents.
12 cents a ticket.
Wow.
5 cents for a box of dots and 5 cents for a Coke.
So it
lived-
was a 22-cent event.
For 25 cents, you could watch 2 movies, cartoon previews, and a Three Stooges short.
That is tremendous.
So-
And you have vivid memories of that piece.
Yes,
I mean, can you really? I mean, what would the most vivid aspect of that be? I mean, the
Well-
memory that really sticks out in your mind.
Seeing Gene Autry and Champion
Right.
riding the parade, you know, was really something. It was just, it was, you know, today people qualify and say it's a rock star. He was
Right,
at
right.
that time a star.
Hannah Montana. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in there, and the whole, you know, everybody's just enthralled to see Gene Autry in Champion come down
Yeah.
Main Street on the horse. You know.
Wow. Wow.
So it was really interesting to see. And then when you moved into television and you saw the Gene Autry show on television,
Right.
Gene Autry, in fact, was a very person that was far ahead in, let's say, the media.
Right. Really?
He
How's
was
that?
he was one of the first movie stars that got into television, and he had at one time 3 different series on television. He had his own television show, the Gene Autry show. He had a series for 2 seasons on Champion, his horse, and then he had another series with a young lady did a Western girl thing that ran 2 seasons. It's called Melody Ranch Roundup. It was called. That was the name. And then by the late 50s, he got into television the bigger way.
Right.
He owned at KTLA. He owned a station in Tucson, Arizona, KOLD. He owned KOLL in Phoenix, and he owned some stations in the Pacific Northwest. I believe he had a string of radio stations called Golden West Broadcasters.
Right.
That owned, I think it was 12 or 14 radio stations. And then after his wife died in 1980, he sold the TVs, and he at that time sold KTLA just the license and the equipment for $550 million. Then
When was that?
1981.
He sold KTLA for almost $500 million.
$500 million.
I mean, a little more than half
Right,
a billion.
and he kept the land and the building, and then later on it was sold, and he got another $800 million.
Wow.
So
That is
he
amazing.
really made it big in the television
I had
business.
no idea. What year did he pass away, Pete?
I believe he passed away. It must have been 88 or 89.
Is that right? Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
He had married, his first wife was from Oklahoma, where he was. Then he had a hotel in Palm Springs called the Gene Autry Hotel.
Right.
And he went into the Bank of America to get a loan to remodel a hotel. They met a young lady there, Jackie, and he married her.
Is that right? Well, you've got a lot of knowledge of Gene Autry, but folks can see this online if they go online to myrtlebeachherald.com. The great thing I saw early this morning when I went in, if you scroll down, your columns are really only there for the last 3 or 4 months. But if you will just put in your name and you change the date back to, let's say, May of 07,
Right.
then you'll see everything from July 5th on. You'll see all the columns that you've authored. I know at Palm Springs Herald, you can go back and see them from last August to
All
present,
right.
so 52 copies of it. But the fascinating thing is taking the time to see all of them back to July 5th of last year. And, of course, it ties into this week. We've got some great folks. One that you helped bring in this Friday, Ernie Passalug,
Right.
the director of the South Carolina Education Lottery. Since we're talking about TV Talk this week, we've got Adam Parness tomorrow, the founder of Shred Alert. And interestingly, on Wednesday, a guest from the Heart Association is coming in. On Thursday, a gentleman who's about to open 3 Dunkin' Donuts in Florence, the city of Florence.
That's going to be
And
fabulous.
and the county up there, by the end of the year, Perry Lutie will be with us. So folks need to tune in. But TV Talk has really kicked off strong.
It's been fun.
You've got a great following. For viewers who haven't seen it and maybe could go to a box, we've got 140 locations here on the Strand. To pick it up, what are they going to find each week, Pete?
Well, they find what happened 50 years ago on television.
50 years ago?
Right.
Really?
50 years ago, I researched to find out what was on the program schedules, what happened in the area. 2 weeks ago, I researched a story about, especially in the Florence area, when the FCC approved the change of the channel for WBTW. That happened 50 years ago.
Wow.
WBTW was on Channel 8.
Right.
They did a drop-in to get a VHF channel up in High Point in the triangle area they had up there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they had to switch channels around. So they moved Channel 8 out of Florence, moved out to High Point, and gave Florence Channel 13.
Right.
Moved the 13 out of Charleston for the educational and changed it to a Channel 7 element.
That's right.
So they made a lot of changes so that they could get this one VHF channel up in North Carolina. But that all happened 50 years ago, and a lot of people had forgotten about it in the Florence area.
Right.
It juggled their memory. Yeah, I remembered that when that happened. Yes, it was. Then they got to talking about who was doing the kids show on WBTW. And
right. Who was it? Do you remember? Was that not Ashby Ward? That was
someone else who was doing it.
Right. And then later Ashby Ward.
Then we had the story about the gentleman who did the interview of the convenience store robberies, C.S. Wade, and where he did composite drawings and led to the capture, and it was recognized by the National Association of Broadcasters back in 1958.
Right.
So
50 years ago.
50 years ago. So a lot of interesting things. Programming really changed a lot in the latter half of the 50s from the earlier part of the 50s. The earlier part of the 50s was more vaudeville variety shows like Ed Wynn. You had all of those. The latter part of the 50s, there were 22 Western shows on television in the fall of 1958. 22.
You're kidding. 22 Westerns?
22 Westerns.
Wow.
There was no unemployment.
Why?
It happened to go in the Fed. Everybody they had Maverick, they had Cheyenne, they had Bronco, they had the Rifleman, they had Wyatt Earp, they had...
But still at that time, wasn't New York City still the biggest TV market
New York
then? L.A.
and
Chicago? I mean, why would they have so many Westerns though?
That was the big bet.
Right.
I mean, the early part was live TV. They called it, the Playhouse, DuPont Playhouse, Dumont Playhouse, Schlitz Playhouse, Ford Theater. And they did Studio One, which was sponsored by Westinghouse. Were all live. A lot of it were live dramas. Then by the time it got to 58, there were film westerns. And there's the famous phrase is, there was not a cowboy unemployed in Southern California.